Hail Baruch Levi, be here from the Defiant Spirit. I wanted to just share with you some quick thoughts on Passover, the Jewish holiday. Back when I was a rabbi, it was sort of central to this time of year. I'd say there's two kind of Jewish New Year's or high holidays, if you will. The fall with, of course, the traditional high holidays and Passover. Passover, though, is totally different. It's much more of a home-based holiday, which means you don't need a synagogue. You do this around your kitchen table or dining room table, with family, with loved ones, with friends, and you put a lot more into it. At least that's the way it's practiced. I'm not saying it should be, but it is. And in order to do that, you really got to do physical things to get ready for Passover, cleaning, getting rid of all the bread products. That's not this conversation, but also an inner type of a work, a spiritual cleansing, a spiritual spring cleaning. And so now in my, new chapter of life for the past 6, 7 years, engaging the Enneagram, I've woven the Enneagram into my Passover experience. A lot of people say to me, are these two separate things, Judaism and the Enneagram? They're not. They're not either or. They're not mutually exclusive, just like it's not mutually exclusive for the Enneagram and Christianity. It's not a religion. It's a roadmap. It's based on mathematics, based on geometry, based on energy. That's another conversation too. But what it is a roadmap for personality. And the Passover story, built around the story of Exodus, is a story about personality. It's about masks. It's about what happens when we forget who we are, when we lose ourselves. Maybe I'll do a whole talk on the book of Exodus and identity and losing ourselves, losing our identity behind the masks that we wear. But I'm not going to do that now. What I do want to share with you as we get ready for Passover, so it just gives you a little lead time if you're interested, is to think of the Enneagram as everybody's imprisonment. Because again, the journey of Exodus is to go from servitude and slavery that the Israelites went through. We have this Passover seder, this dinner where we tell the story of the Exodus and the liberation from Egypt to Israel and Moses leading the Israelites. And we reenact that. And every year we go through this. We're also supposed to see ourselves as personally involved in the journey of the Exodus from slavery to redemption. But it's really hard to do unless you change the language and you put it into 21st century terms. And there's lots of ways that we are still enslaved, even if we don't have shackle around our ankle. We're still enslaved. I work all day, every day as a logotherapist with people who are enslaved to formal addictions, to informal addictions, all kinds of ways we can avoid intimacy or connection or doing what we have to do in life or meaning or purpose. I work with people who are enslaved or trapped in their identities. I just did a podcast on retirement. You know how many men in particular I have buried as a rabbi who retired? They're like vibrant. They hit retirement, and then you can just watch the decline because they don't know who they are if they're not the lawyer, the doctor, the fill in the blank. And so it's about learning how to take that mask off and seeing who's underneath. This is the entire work of logotherapy. Dr. Frankel, he who has a why can endure any how. Your why is not your job. Your why is not your role as a parent. Your why is not your hobbies. Those are pieces of you. But the why, the true you, your essence, your defiant spirit, that is far more nuanced than the masks we wear. So we use the Enneagram as a way to see which mask am I putting on. There are 9 fundamental masks. My core type, my fundamental mask is the Enneagram 8. The Enneagram 8, the challenger. So when I'm in fear, when I'm in reaction, I look like an 8, and my world gets smaller, and I become imprisoned by my personality, by my Enneagram type. By the way, the word Egypt in Hebrew is Mitzrayim, and Mitzrayim means constriction. So it wasn't just a geographical constriction. Constriction is what happens when we're in fear. Our bodies constrict, we constrict. And that's all that the personality is. The personality is not you. Your Enneagram type is not you. It's where you go when you're in fear, but you don't have to live in fear. You should not live in fear. And so before the Passover Seder begins, we have all my kids, which already have their Enneagram type, have their friends, because we do kids' friends Seders these days, maybe 10 other kids. We have them do their Enneagram type. And we all bring it to the table. And we do the traditional Haggadah. That's the prayer book we use, where we read the story of the Exodus and we reenact the traditional pieces. But we intersperse it with the Enneagram. And we talk about what it's like as an Enneagram 8 versus my son who's a 1, the reformer, versus my daughter who's a 9, the peacemaker, versus my wife, Ariella, who's the 4, the individualist. What meets Ryan? What's constriction to you? Because you're supposed to see this as your journey. And so when we talk about it, we have this tool, this resource, this language, the Enneagram, and we're teaching around that. But more importantly, I don't care about the Enneagram. I care about helping people find freedom, right? To become responsible, responsible, as Dr. Frankel said, to able to choose their response. And if you don't know that you're in reaction, you're unconscious. And if you're unconscious, you're not choosing, you're not driving the bus. So the Enneagram and the Passover Seder is an opportunity to get back into the driver's seat, to see where we veered, how we got there, but more importantly, to find our way back. And so consider this Passover utilizing the Enneagram. I'd be happy to get you into an Enneagram assessment if you want a formal assessment, or you can just watch all of my videos, or you can do the free ebook that I created called 9 Enneagram Types Walk Into a Bar. Could have said 9 Enneagram Types at a Seder, but it's 9 Enneagram Types Walk Into a Bar. You can jump over to thedefiantspirit.org and you can download it there. Find your type. You can use that, by the way, pass it around the Seder table. Maybe I'll do that this year. So that people can see all 9 types, kind of flip through it and say, hey, this one I think is really speaking to me. And it'll show you how each type reacts, how they respond, and it's a choose your own adventure. You can choose your way from Mitzrayim, from constriction, from narrowness, from imprisonment, to Israel, to expansion, to responsibility, to freedom. And it's just another roadmap in your life to do that. So for those of you who are Jewish, might make sense to incorporate the Enneagram to spice it up so that you don't have another, when do we eat? Because at my Seder table, we don't want for engagement and conversation with a conversation like this. We finally have to cut people off to get to the food. So if you want a little more stimulation, I'm sure you don't need it because all of your Seders are just so darn engaging and interesting, but it's there for you. And if you're not, I'd be happy to introduce you to both those concepts. And I would love to hear how this applies to Christianity. I just am not versed enough to be able to speak intelligently on that. I'm certain it does. I'm certain it can be applied to the resurrection of Christ and to a Christian's journey in their faith. So I'd love to hear from you on that as well. Until the next time, defy your number, live your spirit. And if I don't talk to you before, have a happy Passover, meaningful Passover, and a meaningful Christmas, 6 months off, a meaningful Easter as well. Okay.